Okay, James Parker is here, mate. Thanks for sending me your swinging. I appreciate it. Right, just pulled your swing up. I think you got a really good idea considering you've only been playing a couple of months. I think you got a really good idea, right? I think you get down to a wonderful position and impact there. I mean, I really like how you've got your right heel off the ground, the weight's on your forward leg. Your hips are over your forward foot. You've cleared your hips and shoulders. You're swinging left after impact, so you're keeping your arms kind of connected. Your hands are moving around on the arc. I think you've got a really good idea. The things I want to work on, however, are going to affect your ball striking and your shot shape as well, right? So the first one being when you do catch it, I'm guessing you've only been playing a few months, so you're going to have a lot of miss hits, and we'll talk about that in a second, right? But the first thing I want you to think about is this club face coming down into impact, right? So for me, you go back okay, right? Club face isn't particularly open going back, but certainly as you start to come down, and we stop you maybe there. Right, and I've drew those couple of green lines there just to illustrate the left wrist angle compared to your left forearm. Right, so you're just a little bit open, right, and then you kind of lay, your wrist is a little bit open. Your wrist is a little bit sort of cupped, and then you come down to sort of P6 sort of area, and for me the club face is just too open there, right? When you come down, I'll maybe show you an example in a second, but when the pros come down to P6, the club face, the toe, which is, and I'll do this in blue, the toe, which is this end, is slightly in front of the heel, which is that end. That would be square, right, if you like. So just kind of when you're swinging down, just try and get that left wrist a little bit more bowed compared to what you're normally doing, right? But like I said, I think you got a great action. Let me maybe pull up a model. Someone from down the line, maybe Robert Rock, and then we'll look at him as he comes down, sort of there. There you go. So when you look at his club face there, you see how the toe is just slightly in front of the heel. That's kind of the position we want to try and get it into. So as he's coming down, you can see how his left wrist and forearm are kind of all in one line there, right? So just a little bit of awareness of your wrist angles and how it affects club face, right? So let's pull up Grant weight there just to give you a model of what we want to do now. With regards to your miss hits, right? So that your miss hits are going to affect your low. What you're doing in your swing is going to affect your low point. So basically, what we want to do is we want to control the centers of your body, right? Now I think you got a good idea in your setup, right? I've just drew a line down from the center of your shoulders, another line down from the center of your hips, and you've got your center of your hips slightly forward of your shoulders, which is exactly what we're after, right? So your head's kind of in the middle of your stance, but the hips are just a little forward, and then if the ball's just a bit forward of center, then the head is always going to be slightly behind the ball, right? So this is kind of what we see with most of the pros to hit a pretty straight shot. Now what you're doing is, I think you understand getting the weight forward, right? You understand that getting the weight forward bit, which is moving the hips forward on the backswing. You've just read it again and again and again and again, and you're overdoing it too much, right? And as you're overdoing it and moving those hips too much forward on the top of your swing, it's just affecting the rest of your movement, right? So there's a lack of hip turn, and therefore, if the hips aren't turning, there's a lack of shoulder turn. So you can get up to the top, and there's hardly any shoulder turn, right? So if we draw those lines with Grant weight here, good example, good swing, box for the head, box for the hips, little circle, little circle for the center of the shoulders, circle for the center of the hips. Now what we're trying to do is keep your head in the box, right? So you're just pivoting around the center of your shoulders. However, during the backswing, we want to move your hips from that red dot, the red circle, to that green circle. So they've moved forward, what, an inch, maybe a couple of inches, the center of your hips, right? And if you look at, and I'm going to do this in yellow, you look at his right pocket, he's maybe got a little bit of space there next to his right pocket. As he does it, when you do it, you've got, at the top of your swing, when you're just starting to bring that club down, you've got all of this space. So it's just a little bit too much, right? So you kind of, it's like anything, you can do something too much, not enough, or you can get it just right. And I think these pros that play golf for a living, they're just getting it just right. Their hips tend to be just a fraction forward of where they were at the top of their swing, right? At the top of the swing, their hips are a little forward of where they were at setup, right? So that's what I want you to do on your backswing. I want you to keep your head centered, right, which you kind of do, right? But it's your lower body affecting your upper body, right? So we want to control the centers, right? Your hips are moving too much forward, and then as you start to come down, instead of your hips having some room to move your hips even more forward, right? Because your hips are already so far forward, now they start coming back, right? So if you watch your hips now, if you watch your left pocket there, which is well outside the red line, as you start to come down to impact, they're actually coming back and coming back, coming back, coming back. So you've got a bit of a reverse pivot going on, right? A reverse pivot is when you move your weight forward on the backswing and then move your weight back on the downswing. I don't want you to ever move your weight back. I just want your weight moving steadily more forward, right? So he gets his center of his hips on the green dot at the top, and then as he starts down, moves his hips a little bit more forward. Look on that green dot, and then a little bit further forward as he comes down even more, and then a little bit more forward as he comes down even more, and kind of at impact he's got his, the center of his hips maybe over his left heel, maybe just short of his left heel, right? Whereas at impact, I mean, you've got them so far forward to start down, you kind of just bring them back to impact. So impact position isn't a bad position. It's just how you're doing it, right? It's just how you're doing it. And then as you come through, your head moves up out the box as well. So, when your right arm's parallel with the ground, there, P8, you can see he's still pretty much got his head in the box, right? So what we need to learn is that kind of gradual movement of your weight going forward, right? We want it a little bit forward at the top, and then a little bit more forward at P5, a little bit more forward. Let me do this. Let me talk about that while we look at Grant White. So a little bit more forward at the top with his hips. That's P4. Little bit more forward at P5, left arm parallel with the ground. Little bit more forward at P6, shaft parallel with the ground. Little bit more forward at impact, P7, and then a little bit more forward at P8 up through to the finish to get your balance, right? And then you can see the hips pretty much, the center of the hips pretty much straight on top of the left foot, right? So it's this idea that there's a gradual movement forward of the hips, not a big lunge forward to get up to the top, because that's affecting your turn, right? So I think that's the first lesson, mate. It's like understanding the centers and how the centers work in the swing. And the way you do it is you put a stick in the middle of your stance, right? You maybe get one along your toes, get one in the middle of your stance there, and then make a slow motion backswing, get up to the top. You want to try and keep your head over the stick. Hips have moved forward of the stick just a smidgen. And then as you start down, head stays in the box, right? So let's draw a little box where his head is, right? So the head's always steady. Head steady on the backswing. Head steady as you come down. head steady as you turn through and you start looking after it. The head's still in the box lock, right? It's the hips that have moved forward, right? So a little bit at the top with the hips, a little bit more at P5, a little bit more at P6, a bit more at P7, a bit more through to P8 and the finish, right? And that's how you're going to get it. So get a stick on the ground in the middle, do this in red, in the middle of your stance there. Get up to the top, keep your head over the stick, come down, move your hips forward of the stick, but keep your head over the stick, a bit more forward with the hips, 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 until you're just balanced over that front foot right there. Okay, mate, so that's how you do it. Any questions, just shoot me over an email. Cheers, Ian.